Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Jason Riley. I'm the chair of the Centerville, Washington Diversity Council. I'd like to thank you for coming out in this and braving the heat. Did anyone have to work outside today? Yay, Park District. Woo. Great. Just a few opening comments. Again, thank you for coming. Quick thank you to the Washington Centerville Public Library. Always does a great job of providing a space for us, so thank you, Charlotte. Thank you to our programs committee, Jerry, Roberta, Carol, Rupsi, Megan LeMaster's on there as well as Kayla. So thank you all. And to the Miami Valley Communications Council for who's recording this, and then we'll have that published and produced at a later date up on YouTube. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over, do a little mic transfer here over to Jerry Eddy, who's going to be our facilitator for this evening.
So welcome, everyone. We're happy to have you with us. While I get this adjusted, let me mention to you that on your way out, I would encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to pick up a follow-up to tonight's discussion. This is a list of books, and we're fortunate enough to have a librarian on our panel tonight, and she very kindly assembled that list for us. So we thank you, Lily, and thank all of you. We're looking forward to an evening where we hope to be able to better understand individuals in our community and to make our community more welcoming and affirming for everyone who is here. This is a particularly trying time for people in the LGBTQIA plus community because they're under attack in every state. Last year, there were over 550 pieces of legislation introduced in state legislatures across the country impacting their rights. So thank you all for being here and for hopefully being allies of the community. I'm going to introduce our panelists one by one, but I'm going to start with AJ, and then I'm going to ask him his first question so that you can identify that's what he does, that's who he is. This is AJ Kessler is a husband to a husband and the proud parent of 2 fur babies and 0 human children. He holds a BA in theater from Wittenberg University and a diversity and inclusion certificate from Cornell University. AJ is the Southwest Ohio manager of CareSource Life Services, where he oversees a team of life coaches who assist CareSource members navigate the social determinants of health. He serves on the board of the Miami Valley chapter of the American Red Cross, leading the DEI committee. He was a member of the Dayton Business Journal's 40 Under 40 class of 2020. And he's a member of the Dayton Chamber of Commerce leadership class of 2024. Before we go further, all of our panelists are impressive people. Let me say it. For AJ's first question, given your business success, AJ, how would you describe your own personal journey?
All right, is this on? I'm gonna guess it's on. I don't know if I need it. All right, so given my personal business success, so first of all, yes, my name is AJ, I use he, him pronouns. I also want to lead with the fact that all of my answers are going to be grounded in my experience as a gay man, but also so my marginalization as a gay man, but as a crossroads with my immense amount of privilege as a cisgender white able-bodied man. So that's my experience. I'll try to color it with my knowledge and my understanding of people with other experiences, but when I'm talking about my experiences, that's my own. So my professional journey's been interesting, and I will say that being out and proud and loud in the workplace, this is basically how I dress minus the shorts, Well, if I work at home 95% of the time, so usually it's in pajamas. But if I'm out in the office, this is usually how I'm dressed. I'm colorful. I'm wearing earrings, and I'm not really worried about looking, would you say, professional. And so, being that way, I would say now it's very embraced in my current role. I will also say that I am happier, I'm more productive, I'm less likely to leave. I am just a more engaged employee if I can be 100% fully myself. That being said, I have also been limited because of the fact that I present the way that I do. I've had, thankfully, these experiences are more further in the rearview mirror than they used to be, but I've had on 2 separate occasions very well-meaning individuals share with me that I would get ahead in my career if I just acted and dressed more professional. That being a dog whistle for being less gay. And I know that has held me back. I know that I've been passed over for positions because of that. And I think for anyone who's navigating that sort of experience, it's important to know what success means to you and what you're willing to sacrifice. I'll also say that I've probably been held back because I'm very strict about work-life balance. So it's not just the gay thing. I'm not going to work past 5 o'clock most days unless I absolutely have to. If I'm on PTO, I just came back from a cruise on Saturday. I'm paid time, it's paid time off. So I am off. You don't get to have me, you don't get to have my time unless you're going to pay me for it. So there are positions where you can't do that. And as you get higher in companies, usually that's not accepted as much. So I understand that as well. And I also understand that I could come to work wearing a suit. I'd probably be thinking about how uncomfortable I am in that suit every second of the day. I would be less productive. I would not be paying attention in meetings. I would not be fully engaged and my ideas would be less AJ ideas. So I would be not as good of an employee. However, I could do that and it's not hurting my humanity. So there are people with other experiences differing from my own, gender nonconforming people, transgender people, who would, the fact that being professional goes against their personhood, it's damaging, it's barbaric. And so when we think about even dress codes in the workplace and how a lot of times, at least historically and still currently, they're gendered, they're restrictive about what certain genders are allowed to wear. Basically, it's telling people that if you make me uncomfortable, I'm not going to let you in the room with me. You're not going to be successful. You can't be yourself and be successful. And that's horrifying. So I think that's where we have to examine it. I kind of went off topic with my personal journey, but that's, I think, where it's very important in thinking that someone with my experience, it's damaging to me, but it's a lot more damaging to people with other experiences, and I think we just need to be aware of that.
Thank you very much. Next, Lily Murray. Lily Murray is a reference and instruction librarian at Sinclair College, and while a fairly new resident of Dayton, is a proud member of the LGBTQ community here. I moved here in the summer of 22 for my first librarian position out of graduate school. I'm from Pennsylvania and naturally attended Penn State University, my undergraduate degree. There I completed a BA in Women's Gender Sexuality Study and a BA in History. I focused on queer history, but I took a wide variety of classes that touched on LGBTQIA plus topics. I also took graduate level courses in gender and sexuality studies while completing my Master of Library Science. I'm looking forward to meeting folks from the group tonight and sharing my knowledge and experiences on the panel. Lily, how would you describe the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity?
Yeah, they are seemingly simple, but so complex and related. First, very broadly, right, gender, there's a lot of options. Man, woman, non-binary, gender fluid, all of these words, right, everyone's got a gender. That's a wide spectrum, right? And gender identity is, who you are on the inside. that is not always in line with what we are assigned at birth, right? You come out of the womb, you're in the hospital based on, typically genitals, you're assigned a gender. And if you are cisgender, that gender identity that you've got inside matches the gender that you've been assigned. So I'm a cisgender woman because came out of the womb assigned as one, and I still identify as one. That's my gender identity. Now, we've got a lot of options for gender identities, and we all express them differently. So we also all have different gender expression options. I present somewhat typically for what you might assume, a woman might look somewhat feminine. I'm wearing a dress, but I've got short hair, tattoos, right? So I've got a somewhat, typical but not so typical gender representation, right? Expression. And so gender identity, who we are on the inside, your gender, what is it? And expression, how you communicate that to the world. Sometimes what gender someone is, you might not know that from the way that you look at them. And also in certain places, someone's gender identity, they might not feel comfortable sharing it. So it's a complex thing. And so sexuality or sexual orientation has to do with who you are interested in, also in relation to yourself. So if I'm a woman and I'm interested in women, that might make me a bisexual woman, a lesbian, all of these options. And so while it's about who I am romantically and sexually interested in, it does also relate to gender identity because it's about often the genders of people that I am or am not interested in, and then also my own gender, right? Because a whole lot of people can be interested in women, but if a man's interested in a woman, he might be straight, woman might be lesbian. So that is to say, those are some definitions, and it's very complicated, and it's all related. So.
We're all complicated human beings.
Yes.
Chris Reed is our next panelist. Chris is the Director of Volunteer Services for Miami Valley Hospital, Main and South Campus, as well as Director of Spiritual Care for the campuses located Main, South, and North. He has served in this role for 2.5 years and has been with Premier Health for almost 17 years. Mr. Reed is a 2003 graduate of Wright State University and a native of the Miami Valley. He currently serves as an executive co-chair for the Premier Employee Resource Group, PRISM, stands for Premier Respects Inclusive States of Mind, a group committed to cultivating a welcoming culture and an inclusive, safe environment for LGBTQ plus members, allies, and advocates. Outside his work, his number one passion is traveling. He also enjoys tennis, golf, hiking, kayaking, paddleboarding. He's honored to be part of the discussion panel tonight. Chris, how do you see more or less the acceptance of LGBTQIA plus members in our society?
Thank you. That's a hard question. So the answer is yes, is what I would start off with. So I'm a kind of a glass half full kind of person. So I would say more acceptance, certainly since I've been growing up the last 15 to 25 years, I've noticed that. But the work continues, obviously, as Jerry referenced at the beginning of the night. And so what we have to do is be aware of those issues that affect our neighbors, our coworkers, and how they really translate into their everyday lives. So that more the negative side. I focus on the acceptance of, I see the acceptance in awareness and education, in the open dialogue that we have on a daily basis, from social media to television. It's becoming more talked about, which is wonderful, which is something when I was growing up as a closeted gay man, closeted gay kid, you didn't really talk about that. You didn't see representation on social media. That social media wasn't even a thing back then, or television. And now it's becoming what we had hoped it would become, I think. And so for me, that's a wonderful thing. I see also the acceptance, I see more acceptance in the current generation that's coming up. I have 5 godchildren, and 3 of them are 15 to almost 19 years old. And I see they have conversations with me. When I was single 2 years ago, they roped me into joining a dating app, Tinder. And my, at that point, 13 to 14-year-old goddaughter wanted to go Tinder shopping with Uncle Chris. And so we were scrolling and left and right and all that. And luckily I don't have to Tinder shop anymore because my boyfriend of 15 months is right back there. So kudos to my goddaughter. But the point being is they want to know, when are you coming back? When can we play tennis? When is Uncle Keith coming? When's he going to be back in town? Those are conversations and statements that to this day still flabbergast me as a gay man, that I never thought it would be so accepted for them. They just simply don't care. And when I say care, I don't mean emotion in it. They don't care who I love, who I want to be with. And so that is a place where many of us in our community never dreamt we could possibly have been in. And so I have hope, is my point. And I'm filled with a lot of hope with this current generation and with their beliefs and what they are willing to share, what they're willing to stand up for as well.
Thank you. The next introduction I would usually introduce with the Reverend Michelle Wilkie, but she prefers Pastor Michelle Wilkie. Has been an ordained minister with the United Church of Christ since July of 2014. Her first call was at David's United Church of Christ in Kettering, Ohio, where she served for over 8 years as the associate pastor. And we mourn with you the passing of Pastor Brian. In January of 2023, Pastor Michelle began as the lead pastor at Harmony Creek Church, another United Church of Christ congregation, and she is still serving there and loving every minute of it. When she isn't busy pastoring, Pastor Michelle and her spouse, Jay, love to travel and spend time with their 2 dogs, Lemmy and Clark Kent. They also love spending time with their friends whom they consider to be their chosen family. Pastor Michelle prides herself in not being your typical pastor. Once you get to know her, you'll soon discover that that's the truth. Pastor Michelle, what kinds of challenges did you go through when coming out?
All right, how much time do we have? Well, to put it short, I'll try to make it as short and brief as possible. But I grew up in a very conservative fundamentalist home. I went to a Southern Baptist church. I was raised in that environment, and so there was challenge after challenge. When I told my mom that I was having same-sex attraction when I was, I think, 13. My mom immediately got me into special groups where there was special prayers over me. My mom even thought about getting me exercise to exorcise the gay demon out of me. I even went through conversion therapy. So I had challenges from left and right. From the time I didn't really come out when I was 13. I just told my mom I was struggling because I was raised in an environment where God would not love me. I was told that God would not love me if I was gay. And I'm a real people pleaser and a God pleaser. So I wanted to do everything I can to try to be who God wanted me to be in order for God to love me. So I did put myself through hell to avoid hell, ironically. And it was awful. It was an awful experience for me. I even went to a more conservative college. I went to Centerville University and survived somehow. And And what I love is that there's a big group of people that graduated from Cedarville and came out after Cedarville. And I am part of a group, and it's called Cedarville Out. And I find a lot of, it's nice to have people that I can relate to, because it was while at Cedarville that I went through conversion therapy. So there was a lot of challenges, and religion, unfortunately, can be used for good and bad. Unfortunately, it was used for bad against me. I grew up thinking that I wasn't loved. I grew up thinking that I would never escape this cross that I had to bear. That's kind of how I looked at it. And finally, after I graduated from Cedarville, I was 24 when I came out. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I was also 24 when my church, where I grew up, when they kicked me out after they found out that I was gay, that I was a lesbian. And I'm very grateful that they kicked me out, because I am so glad to be gone from that toxic environment. But the challenges that I still struggle with is that my whole family, for the most part, is still very much involved in fundamentalist conservative Christianity. So that is a struggle that I have to deal with every day. But that's why chosen family is so important to me. And that's why also that I was so grateful to find the United Church of Christ when I was 25. And that's where I found my call to become a pastor, because I was also, there's other issues, because I was a woman, I couldn't be a pastor in the church I grew up in, because women were supposed to be barefoot in the kitchen. And that's something my dad still to this day wants me to be. And I have let him down over and over on that one. But the United Church of Christ, I just want to say, it was the church where I found God, where I found God's love and realized that I could be 100% who I am, and I could admit and I could see that there was nothing wrong with me, and I had always been God's beloved. And to realize that was just the most freeing thing I've ever experienced in my life, to realize that there was nothing wrong with me. I was not broken. And now I am a pastor. And it surprises me every day that I decided to stay with the church. But I want to be part of trying to get the message out there that not all churches are going to are jerks. Because there are churches out there like Harmony Creek Church, like David's UCC, that will embrace and welcome and say from the pulpit that everyone, and really mean it, that everyone is truly welcome. And they will proclaim and live out a faith that shows that their God, that our God is a God of love, period. And anything that goes against that is just wrong, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's some of the challenges. It's hard to put into words, because I could go on and on, because I still experience some challenges, but I am so moved by the hell that I did go through, because I really want to show others this. I want to proclaim this message that you are loved for exactly who you are. So that's, yeah.
Thank you.
It's a little all over the place. That's kind of how yeah.
Thank you. There's a common question that I had as a second question for several people, and that is, how can we build a more inclusive community? And we'd like you to share your ideas on how not only Centerville and Washington Township, but the entire Miami Valley, and as a result, our entire state, and as a result, our entire nation.
I don't know who wants to start.
I think this forum, I think we're doing it. I think, by a willingness of a city to highlight this and make it important is monumental. On a hot Thursday night, everyone here being willing to come and listen, be open-minded, open-hearted. So I think it starts there. I think it starts with the home as well too. Talk about it. Have a dialogue. Be okay with taking a stand and share that. Be, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. So, and then lastly, with businesses and organizations like mine, Premier Health, that has been willing to commit and put that commitment to the test through our diversity and equity and inclusion, making it a priority, making it part of our mission. So support those businesses and organizations that mirror your values as well.
I would also say just accept people for who they say they are. And that is not always easy. I recently started going to Al-Anon, and that has helped me to accept even my family a little bit better. I was listening to the podcast of Sarah Silverman recently, and she had someone on her show that talked about how do you deal with family that has such widely differing beliefs in you. And Sarah was like, well, just realize that they're probably never going to change, and you're probably never going to change. And so kind of check your expectations of that other person, And that's kind of what I have done with my family. I still see my family, we hang out, but we have just come to the point where we agree to disagree. And I have checked my expectations, knowing that my mom, my dad, they will never change. And they realize I'm not going to change. And so we just agree that there is enough room in this world for both of us. There's enough room at the table for both of us. And each of us, we all have something to offer to make this world a better place. That's what I preach all the time. Because even if someone doesn't agree with you, you can still be you're still both humans. And you're still both worthy of love. And I think at the end of the day, that's something we need to remind ourselves, is that everyone is loved. Everyone has something to offer, even those people that we may not agree with. Because that, I think, is how we build true inclusive tables, is by how do we get along with those that are widely different from us, which is not always easy, but it's something I am striving to do every day. So.
I think some things relating to work can be kind of helpful places to start. Things as small as, you welcome a new employee, introduce yourself with your pronouns. If you want to know someone's pronouns, don't just ask them because they look queer or trans. That singles them out. If you want to know pronouns, ask everybody. Introduce with yours. Like, lead with curiosity but kindness. Encourage supervisors, or if you are a supervisor somewhere, training on LGBTQ issues, on pronouns, on whatever it may be. And work is not the only scenario, but we all spend an awful lot of time at work. So I think these can just be kind of helpful things. And if you are someone who wants to know more, feels like you don't know enough, or you don't know where to start, I think most queer and trans people I know will not be offended if you misstep. Truly. I have trans friends, queer friends, all of them, like 95% of my friends truly would not be offended if you say something, as long as you apologize and move on. I think that is a huge thing, because again, we're assuming, good intent on both sides. So I think lead with curiosity, kindness, and the small things you can do in your life. So yeah, put your pronouns in your email signature, things like that are also signifying to other people in your organization, in your department, that you, at the very least, know. We don't know. As a queer person stepping into a new workplace, that can be scary. When I talk about my partner, what will happen? And so having those little tidbits of, I don't exactly know what's up, but you are some kind of ally is helpful. So all of those things, which was all across the board, I think are helpful.
A couple of things. First and foremost, vote. Vote local, vote state, vote federal, for people who are not trying to divide us, who are trying to unite us, for people who are inclusive and believe in all races, all humans, all sexual orientations, all gender identities as being full, complete humans who do not need fixed. That, first and foremost, I think is incredibly important. And also, you can vote with your money. If a corporation doesn't agree with your values, you don't have to support them just because they have delicious chicken, or stuff like that. Also, use any privilege that you have to dismantle privilege. Privilege is situational, so everyone in different rooms has a certain sort of privilege. If I walk into a gay bar, I'm one of those most powerful people in the world. If I walk into a boardroom, less so, but still, white, cisgender, able-bodied. So, I'm able to understand where my influence is and where my privilege is. And so everyone has influence in spaces, in certain spaces in your life. And so if you have influence in a certain space in your life and you're looking around the table and someone is missing, make sure that that someone gets to be at that table. And not only that, listen to them and apply what they are sharing with you to the work that you are doing. Because we can't have these silos and have these echo chambers and make any sort of difference in any room, in any space, in any large or small area of our lives, unless we are listening to everyone's perspectives and actually applying that so that we can build a more equitable society.
Thank you. One of the points brought up was where the money goes. Where your money goes, just as importantly, where the company's money goes. There's a news publication called Popular Information. Their issue today illustrated Deloitte especially, but several corporations who make a big deal about Pride Month and yet donate millions to politicians who vote against LGBTQIA plus interest, trying to deny rights and the legal ability to rectify a wrong. So when you're picking out which company to invest in or to buy from, do a little homework on where their money goes when it comes to donating to politicians. Let me ask you a different kind of question. What brings you joy in life?
A lot of things. The first thing that comes to my mind is my relationships. My relationships with my partner, with my family, with my friends. I find joy in that because I have a wonderful, I'm very blessed and lucky enough to have a wonderful support system around me at all times. And in my bio at travel. Travel is my number one joy, my passion. And I so much so, one of my favorite quotes that I brought, and which I think is applicable tonight in this forum and for Pride Month, but for in general for everyone, is one of my favorite quotes from Mark Twain. And I'll just say, paraphrase a little bit, is travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime.
I think this one's pretty universal, but just being authentically myself and feeling very comfortable in my skin, speaking to myself as I would speak to a very dear one, my closest of dear ones, that brings me joy. And I think there are a lot of people who express hate against others because I don't think they have that joy in themselves. And it's just an outward expression of that inner, I guess, sadness and that inner struggle that they have. So a lot of that. Travel as well is super important. Just being on the ocean, not in the ocean, on the ocean is very pleasing to me. In the ocean, a whole different story. Yeah, those are some things that bring me joy.
I think specifically relating to kind of this topic, it's cheesy, but like queer joy, right? Visibly seeing in public, on television, in media, like queer happiness for a very long time. Queerness in media was usually sad. Someone dies, right? The relationship ends, like sadness, right? And I think seeing other queer people, and also, I'm 26, so I'm pretty young, but also there's a lot of queer people younger than me. So when I'm at the library desk, when I worked at many libraries, when young queer kids see me, you can always tell because they desperately try to find something to compliment about me. This is what queer people do to each other. We say, I see you're queer, I like your hat. And I don't really care about your hat, I just see that you're queer and it's exciting to see. But getting to be that also for college students, for high school students, to make those connections that also no one else who's not queer is gonna see that. And so to have these relationships with strangers, to see these things in media, I think is really important. And it's just a certain kind of special that also kind of, in a sense, belong to the queer community too, right? There's this thing that we can see and share with other people that other people probably aren't gonna see. And I think it's pretty cool.
Happy Pride, by the way. I keep forgetting to say that. So I thought that was a very good moment to say that.
Relating to that queer joy, I would also just say I like to cover my car and stickers. My wife hates it, but I have pride stickers all over my car, and I love when people recognize it and they'll come up to me and they'll say thank you for having that sticker, and so that brings me joy as well. And also, I love being where I'm serving now at Harmony Creek Church. I feel like I am my full, authentic, messy self, and they embrace me for who I am, and I get to be more myself than I've ever been. I am not, as my bio says, I'm not your typical pastor. This past Sunday, I preached, and we had a Barbie doll and the unicorn on our altar. And I love doing that kind of stuff, just going outside of the box. I'm a very outside of the box person, and I never even realized how outside of the box I was until I was able to be even more myself at Harmony. I would also say I love traveling too. I really never got to travel much until I met my wife. I never left the country until I met Jay, and now we've been several places, and we're actually leaving next July, or we're leaving next month. We're doing a cruise in Greece. And so I'm a little nervous because I get seasick very easily, but I did buy every single thing that you can think of. So I'm going to have a patch, I'm going to have a bracelet, I'm going to have everything to help myself not get sick. But I love being around, and we get to go on this cruise with our chosen family because I have a complicated relationship with my actual family of origin. But we are so close, and we get to go, and we're going to be with each other for a week on this cruise. Hopefully we're still going to consider ourselves chosen family after the week's over. But I'm just really looking forward to it. And I love being around my friends, my chosen family, because as a pastor, sometimes you have to wear different hats. And people, when they hear I'm a pastor, they automatically think they put me in a box immediately. But I make them realize I'm not that kind of pastor at all. But when I'm with my friends, I get to be, I don't know, a little more inappropriate at times and goofy. And so I'm really looking forward to that week of just being with them and taking off the pastor hat. So that brings me a lot of joy as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Lily mentioned this conversation specifically, but I also like being in rooms with different people from different backgrounds, different races, different ages. I imagine different socioeconomic classes, different belief systems. Michelle's a pastor. I happen to be an atheist. I'm a recovering Catholic, always will be. And I not to quote Schitt's Creek, but to quote Schitt's Creek, I love that journey for you, and I really do. I think it's phenomenal that we can come and have a panel discussion that's full of love and full of openness, and come from different belief spectrums and still be trying to work for the same thing. So I think these types of conversations are vital. They really do bring me joy. I'm going to be skipping out of the room, maybe actually literally, we'll see, as this conversation ends.
Here's a question from the audience. If you need a therapist, what are some things you wish they would be considerate of or know? And actually, I'm going to ask the second one along with it. How can the mental health community better serve you?
I be fully transparent. I first started therapy with my partner a few months ago, and I think it's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful few sessions. And what we looked for, what I look for is an openness. They have a bio usually, so you can obviously do your research and see if they are familiar with, in this case, LGBTQIA topics, culture, so that they have an awareness that what we're bringing to the table as well for a session. So I think I would encourage anyone to do that. I have never thought of therapy as a stigma whatsoever, and I'm so glad that I did it and want to continue that journey as well too. So, any other thought? Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When I in the past have sought out therapists, psychiatrists, I think kind of requirement for me is that they explicitly mention the LGBTQ plus community. Also, my partner is trans, is non-binary, and so I've helped them find therapists. And I'm a librarian. I like finding stuff, so I do this for a lot of people. Got my degree in finding things, so it's good. And that also that they really mean it. You can be well-meaning, but don't put it if you don't really mean it. Do the work, understand, gender and pronouns and all of these things, because it's one to say like, I'm striving to be an ally, but if you really truly want to support trans clients, you have to really get it. And so they've had, therapists misgender them, just not fully understand. And so it's okay if you aren't there, I think, to support people, but to know also where you're at. So I think that I would seek out someone who very explicitly mentions the LGBTQ plus community, and then, in conversation you can tell they really mean it, they really know it, they really understand it, and they think about it a lot. I don't want to be the first person that is queer that has a trans partner, because then they're going to have to be doing work that I don't really want to be around for.
So speaking of that, I started therapy in 2018, and my first therapist was on his bio said he was an ally to the LGBT plus community. But when I started to see him, I quickly realized that maybe that's not 100% true, because our sessions became more like him asking me to explain what a lesbian was. And that was not what I was there for. I was not there to help him be woke. And so I was able to find a therapist that I know for a fact lives it out, says that she is an ally. And I know without a doubt in my mind that when I go to see her on a monthly basis, that my full self will be welcomed. And she's not asking me questions about my orientation. She's asking me questions about how I am doing as a person. And so that has been just truly helpful, because I am a big proponent of therapy. You don't need to feel like everyone should be in therapy, whether or not you feel like you need to be. I think sometimes, Inside Out 2 reminds us of that. If you have not seen that, plug in for that movie. But yeah, that's what I would say. Just find someone that you feel comfortable with. And if you feel even a slightest bit of discomfort, then find a new therapist, I would say.
Everything they said, and everyone should go to therapy. There you go.
We've got two more here. First of all, the question of if a young person came to you for counseling or advice on coming out or not coming out, what would you say to that young person?
Do it. That's the short version. Yes, find a way to do it, because it releases you from such a burden that it's worth it. But before you do that, understand what safety means to you, what psychological safety, what physical safety means to you. Certainly don't put yourself in harm's way, especially with physical safety, and try not to put yourself in harm's way with psychological safety. Michelle keeps talking about chosen family. That's so important. That can include your family of origin. It's a Venn diagram, but chosen family is who you need to surround yourself with. Make sure that you have them on speed dial if you're going to have a coming out conversation that you think might go well, that you think might go poorly. You never really know. It's kind of always a crapshoot. And coming out is not a one and done sort of situation. Coming out can be a daily occurrence. And sometimes I can pass more easily than others. And sometimes if I feel like, especially my physical safety is in harm's way, I might distance myself from my husband. I might lower my voice a little bit, which just sounds weird, but I might try. That might make me more obvious, honestly, and maybe I shouldn't do that. But I think, again, always knowing what safety means is very important, but also understanding, yes, that it coming out is a journey. It's not just, I'm out and I'm proud and everyone knows now. So it can be taxing as well. So again, tap into that self-love, tap into who you feel most authentic, and knowing that that person is always going to be there for you. I think that's extremely important as well, because you never really know what you're going to encounter on your coming out journey, and just being comfortable with who you are and confident in who you are is extremely important.
I think on the topic of, right, it's the coming out journey. It's dozens and dozens and dozens of times for the rest of my life I will be doing this. And I think that encouraging them to amass the people they know who will be there to support them, right? So you said, like, who's on speed dial? If you plan on telling someone, on coming out to someone, if it's your family, like, backup plan, what happens if it goes poorly, right? Like, and I think this can also be positive, right? Who are the people that you know love you and support you? And so I also think, thanking them for sharing this information. You don't have to, make it formal and weird if the moment's not formal and weird, but just, know that you've also been given some very important information, and do with that, with respect. But I think, just encouraging folks to know who has their back, whoever it may be. And if they don't, maybe help them think about people who have their back, or help them find people who have their back, organizations, groups that they can get if they don't have anybody for them.
Yeah, I agree. And so it's making sure they have that safe space. It's I would argue that it's the beginning of a journey for them. So to get to a point where you say, whether it's a work engagement or new friends you're meeting for the first time, to say, oh, my boyfriend is going to be there as well too. That's part of my vernacular now, and that's wonderful. But it's taken since I was 26 and I'm 43 years old. Now, but getting to having that surrounding of a safe space is monumental. At least it was for me when I came out at 26, and knowing that there's another side. Getting to the other side, and it's such a relief when you do. I go back to my dear friend when I told her when I came out. I said, "Ange, I'm gay," and she said, "Yeah, I know." She said, "I'm more surprised you're dating a smoker." And I'm like, and I thought to myself, what? It wasn't a big deal. They already knew. They knew what I wasn't ready to share. So it doesn't always end that way, which is a great way. So be prepared and have that safe space for that person.
I would just ditto everything they have said, but also just add as well, it is such a big deal when someone does share that information with you. They are sharing such a intimate part of their journey, and so just to recognize that, as Lily said, just to thank that person for trusting you with that. I know that I have a cousin who recently came out to me, and unfortunately, she can't be out to our family. But I am very grateful that I can be that person for her, and she knows that without a doubt she can come to me. She tried to come out to the family, and when she said that she was gay, the response was, "No, you're not," and that was an end stop. And so I am just grateful that I can be that safe space, that safe person for her, and I hope to be that. And that's what I strive to be for anyone that would share with me that part of their journey, because it is so important that when you do come out, you can feel free, that you know that you're not going to be judged, and that the first thing that you should say to someone when they do come out is, you are loved just as you are. Nothing has changed. So,
given that young person and the way Ohio's legislature moves on education and schools, how do you view Ohio's current political climate regarding the queer community and hopes for the future?
Very scary. As someone with a trans partner, very, very, very scary. If legislation passes that limit hormones, we got to go, right? We can't be here. And that we're lucky that I have the position that I could move, that I could uproot. And so for me and myself and, my partner, very scary. And knowing that something like getting gender affirming care difficult, even just difficult, could be the make or break. And that's just like that care, right? All of the other care that somebody would need would become very difficult. And so, yeah, for me, pretty terrifying. And something that I have to think about knowing, specifically trans rights. I think that's up there, knowing that it can really either force people to do some scary stuff, right? You have to move, relocate, or just know I can no longer get the care that I need. And then what do you do with that?
yes, it is scary. I have started looking at UCC churches in Canada. But it is scary. But I do have this sense of hope, though, that when hate is loud, love needs to be louder. So as Mr. Rogers says, look for the helpers. And I do believe that if we come together, that we can make change. I know that things just seem so, hopeless at right now, but I do believe that there is something coming. We are slowly, the moral arc bends towards justice. It bends very, very slowly at times, but eventually it does get there. I think of the United Methodist Church, which for years they were not including those in the Q+ community, and that was in their bylaws. And they recently just passed to include the Q+ community, and that's a big deal for a denomination. So I see things like that, and I see that change is possible. And yes, it unfortunately takes so long at times, but I don't know. I see it somehow that hope will prevail somehow.
Very much what they said. I do think it's terrifying. I think it's important to state, though, that it's terrifying for all marginalized communities. It's not just the Q+ community. Very terrifying, certainly for the trans community, but for BIPOC folks, for folks living in poverty, this is a scary time. So I go back to what I said before about voting. I think that's extremely important. It's easy for people who feel like they're being attacked to be disenfranchised, to feel like their vote doesn't matter. And that's the exact opposite of what they should feel at this time. We need to have a lot of get out the vote campaigns. We have to make sure that voting rights access remains so that we can have marginalized communities have the access and the right to vote so they can have their voice heard and empower themselves to create change. That's really the only way out of this. I am hopeful that this is the far pendulum swing, that we're going to start going back toward progress. I'm not positive that that's going to be the case. I think it's possible, but I'm certainly not positive. We all have to, as Michelle said, band together to create the loving world that we want to see.
Thank you. Obviously, voting is paramount in this state as well as all states. But on issues that are so vital and important, I have friends who are also have laid the groundwork to migrate to Canada in preparation for what may happen here in Ohio. And they hold high-level positions in our community. And it would be a tragic loss if we lose part of our community because we haven't organized and voted enough. I won't say any more about that. But don't give your power away. Exercise it. You're making those who believe otherwise more powerful by not voting. So is there another question that someone may have? We're getting close to the magic 7 o'clock hour. Kayla?
Going beyond inclusion, what does equity look like for you all in your life, your workplaces, your communities?
Very simply, equity is equal access to opportunity for everyone, but equal does not mean the same. So some people need more access to opportunities than others because of their marginalized status. So really, equity to me is providing people with the extra resources and support that they need to eventually get to what is a level playing field.
I agree. We have, with our employee resource groups at our hospitals, it provides a place for everyone to kind of come together and get to know one another, explore positions, that they might not have seen or heard of, and it breaks down those barriers of titles. It breaks down those barriers of jobs and what folks think that other folks might do. And it's a good opportunity to just be more cohesive in the workplace, so that we can relate with allies, with members of our own community. We have multiple different. We have African American ERGs. We have women's ERGs. And you don't have to identify as any of those groups either to be in those groups. So that, I think, is very important as far as for that cohesion for an organization and a business as well.
And I would also say, just recognizing that we are all different, we all have different needs, and we may be together, but we're not all the same. That kind of, when I think of equity, I think of that, and meeting people where they are at, and trying our best to provide for them where they're at in life, and recognizing that not everyone's at that same place in their lives. So.
I think for me, I think a lot about what you've said many times, which is like LGBTQ, right? We talk about it broadly so we can have these conversations, but that it is so different person to person. That, intersectionality, these various intersections of our identities aren't just, plus one. I'm a woman, I'm queer, but that we think much more broadly about the most marginalized communities, right? That queer, trans, Black women don't just have those various identities stacked on, they are accumulating, they are culminating in this experience in this country. They experience so much violence because of all of those identities that compound, right? And so I think equity is thinking broadly about all of these identities and acknowledging that we all share some things. I think that we're a good representation, right? If we all share some, but have a lot of differences. And I think, remembering that when we think about, LGBTQ rights and inclusion, that it also is heavily reliant upon reproductive rights and women's rights and socioeconomic, support of marginalized communities. So knowing all of these things when we think about equity, it's not just one, that the most marginalized communities are members of various marginalized communities.
Southern Baptists were formed because after the Civil War, they did not want to align themselves with the rest of the Baptists who accepted the end of slavery. Southern Baptists could prove to you in the Bible why slavery was ordained by God. And that's what formed the Southern Baptist Church. They have eventually left that position, and I think we can take hope that over time people can change, that people can change. And it's when we all have more in common than we have in conflict. And it's precisely when what we have in conflict is in the news that what we have in common must be stressed. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to the panel. Thank you to everyone here.